In 1994, a company called Matthew Clark bought the Taunton Cider Company. This company also bought another cider production company a few years earlier called Showering Limited. Matthew Clark moved all the production of all the brands from Taunton Cider Company to Showering Limited, and it closed Taunton Cider Company in 1998. After a few years, in 2007, all the buildings were demolished and the site where the factory was is now a place where they have built some 600 houses. In this video, you can see how the site where the cider factory was has changed from when the factory was there till today. And while you have a look at that, I will go through some more information on cider production and Taunton Cider Company's history. It was the Romans who first discovered how to ferment apple juice to produce a pleasing and refreshing drink. Centuries later, the Normans found that the soil in Normandy and Brittany was ideal for growing fruit tree, and this led to a steady growth in northern France in the planting of orchards and the production of cider. History speculates that when the Normans conquered Britain in the 11th century, they brought their fruit-growing and cider-making expertise with them, and, finding that the soil in Hereford and southwest Britain was similar to their own, started widespread planting of the apple varieties, which they grew successfully at home. This was the British cider industry born, and it flourished throughout the southwest. Every farm should have a small number of apple trees, and many local farmers would make their own cider via a very basic process which gave no real control over quality or alcoholic strength. Taunton Cider Company was established in 1805 in a small village called Norton Fitzwarren, just outside of Taunton in Somerset. They produced a lot of different cider, but the most popular was the cider called Dry Blackthorn. In 1912, the cider company got very popular and it became a limited company. When the government of the time introduced a purchase tax on cider in 1923, Taunton Cider Company had a bad wobble, but luckily it survived. All the cider they produced was produced in wooden barrels and supplied to pubs, but in 1930 they decided to try something new: bottled cider. This was not with luck, because that type of cider supplying didn't take off before a few years later. In 1972, the company started producing the popular Dry Blackthorn, and they also started making TV ads. This was clever by the company, because in 1973 the production had increased by 10%, in 1992 it had increased by 34%, and later in the 90s the production had increased some 12 times. But unfortunately, this was the time when Matthew Clark came and bought the Taunton Cider Company, and a few years later shut it down.